Need a little background first on this. View, method, and fruit. If you've been studying Tantra with Indians or Tibetans, you're going to hear about view, method, and fruit until you're blue in the face. It's a very, very important concept to understand, isn't it? So the Sanskrit for view is usually darshana. Darshana comes from the root Sanskrit word drish, which means to see. But in Sanskrit, to see, drish, means to know directly, to experience directly, not just see. So the idea of sight was to be seen in that sight and known in it, right? So darshana was like, if you've seen the Avatar movie, is that Cameron's movie with the blue people, right? James Cameron, right? Nobody knows, nobody watches movies. What's wrong with you people? Watch movies. So Avatar with the blue people, they say, I see you. You know, when they walk up to each other, when they greet each other, instead of, hey, what's happening? So I see you. And the whole point is like to try to open to that moment of being with a person in a state of non-duality. It's kind of cool. So there's the idea of seeing, or darshan, in view. Darshan is also, another way of saying it in English, is the philosophy or the orientation. So whatever school you're practicing, whatever philosophy it has, whatever orientation it has, this is called darshana or view, okay? So we have to study view teachings, receive view teachings, listen to view teachings, read the text, you know, on view over and over in our tradition to recondition our mind, right? We have to recondition our thinking. We have to recondition all of the conceptual framework that we have and slowly open it and break it out larger and larger and larger and wider to encompass this widest view of non-dual dharma. That's through the view. In spiritual work, we also have method, or upaya. Upaya means method or spiritual practices. Upadesha, to receive those instructions. This is Sanskrit. Upadesha is to receive instruction. Upaya is to practice them, to take those instructions and use them. So, the whole category in Tantra of practices that you know about. Thousands of meditations, all the physical practices, the energetic practices. It's just a huge compendium of practice. As far as I've seen in my survey of world religions, it may be the greatest compendium of practices out there. Just a massive amount of practices. This is upaya, the spiritual practices and sadhanas that supplement the grace so that we can have a deeper opening, right? An integration practice comes into this as well. Many times we think about practice only as sitting on the cushion, being in retreat, something like that. But integration practice is actually held at a little bit higher level of value in Tantra than even the seated practice. Seated practice is where you learn and get your chops down. Integration is where you're starting to put it into play and actually experience the expression of whatever state of essence you're able to come up with, you know, through the practices, right? And refine through the world, through meeting the world and integrating with the world. So this is method upaya. This brings us to fruit. Fruit, pala, pala or siddhi. Pala means fruit literally in Sanskrit, like tripala, 3 fruits, that wonderful Ayurvedic formula for tonifying our digestion, right? Tripala. And siddhi means attainment, accomplishment. A person who has attainment or accomplishment is a siddha, right? If you have magic powers, you know, if you have great accomplished powers, you have siddhis, you say, you have siddhis, right? You have siddhi. So siddha is a person with siddhi. So the fruit of something, the result of something here, philosophically speaking in the system, can be called pala siddhi, right? Enlightenment itself is the fruit of view and method. The result, the embodiment, right? The enlightenment expressed in the embodiment of the human being is the pala or the siddhi. So it makes people that are expressing a higher order of magnitude of realization, like the realized yogins in the tradition, even partially realized yogins have a higher order of magnitude of expression of embodied essence. Then fully realized yogins very high, and then fully realized mahasiddhas super high, like this. It's this embodiment of the fruit of the whole path that makes them so extraordinary and so valuable to us as markers and guides on the path and teachers. So it comes down to conduct here, which is quite interesting. So the fruit is often then expressed as the conduct. See what I mean? So, and often we say, what is enlightenment? What is enlightenment? Well, you can talk about it philosophically all you want, but then again, when it comes out, you have to see it in a person. And you have to see, well, what is that conduct? That conduct is actually the enlightenment. That conduct is the fruit. How it comes out. What you do with your life after you have realization. See, momentary realizations are not a very important thing. In one way, they're important because they start to open us and they give us inspiration. But we want much more than that, right? We have to have an unbroken experience. When we talk about flowing presence or enlightenment in this school, we define it as maximizing human creative potential as a simple, quick definition. But in that maximizing of human creative potential, there's a sense of aksha, unbroken expression, effortless, unbroken expression of one's own inherent enlightened nature. Effortless, important category, because if it's not effortless, it's not enlightenment. Effortless, because it pre-exists, it's not created, it's inherent. So effortless, unbroken, not coming in and out. Many of us have experiences of coming in and out of our essence all the time. That's not a big deal, really. You know, when we have a big experience in retreat or in a ritual or an empowerment or something or some moment, and we, you know, take that experience and put it on the altar, light incense and wave incense around it, and we make a new God, basically, and we freeze ourselves in that old experience. It gets crusty and it gets conceptual, it's not real anymore. Huh? So that's not what we want. This enlightenment has to be fresh. The immediacy of presence has to be fresh every moment, just fresh. No one knows what you're going to do. You don't know what you're going to do. Spontaneity. That's true conduct of the enlightened being, right? So there's more to the definition of the enlightenment than being omniscient or something like that. It's this unbroken freshness and immediacy constantly being expressed that's inherent and uncreated from your essence nature, right? This maximizes human creative potential. This is who we are as humans. Okay? That's conduct, because that's how we see it come out. Now, when I practice conduct, when I take up conduct as a practice, I'm bringing it into here, into upaya, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. But really, you should see all the levels in it. You should see the whole philosophy of the system in the conduct that we're going to talk about today, 21 precepts. It is a method itself, and it's definitely an integration method. So it's actually a very high method. We talked about seated practice being one thing, but you can't carry around that experience of seated practice all the time. You can't walk around doing high Kriya Yoga and expanding lights and bells going off and everything. That's meant to do something to you that you then integrate, right? But here, so conduct becomes integration practice. So therefore, it's actually quite a high practice. And conduct is actually in the category of fruit. So we see something that people don't usually see. When people get involved in spiritual cultivation and spiritual practice, conduct is usually the least thing in their mind, Westerners especially. Easterners are a little different, but Westerners are like, conduct. It's all about the practices, isn't it? You know, it's all about the enlightenment experience, the moment, that kind of thing. Well, yeah, but conduct can be seen as related to the body. So, as relates to body, speech, and mind, this is body, or activity, action in the world. In Tantra, we have three aspects of humanity, right? Body, speech, or energy. Speech or energy or emotion or bhava, right? Bhava, the state of being, the attitudinal mode or disposition of being. Are you angry? Are you jealous? Are you sad? Whatever. Bhava. And then we have here, view, mind. Mind. The imaginal aspect of mind and creativity. So all three are represented in a human being here. So the fruit then actually comes back down to the body. How interesting. How do we show up, we say in Tantra? How are you showing up? That's your lowest common denominator. When stress hits you, the doggy runs out, you know, your kid leaves school and takes all your money from college and pisses it down the drain, and all these other things go on. What do? Your lowest common denominator. That's your body. That's your conduct. So conduct very much relates to body practice. So if people are espousing to be into Tantra and follow a full rounded practice sadhana program, it means they're cultivating their body and their conduct as well, right? Their body energy. Well, I do lots of Hatha Yoga. I do all kinds of Hatha Kundalini Yoga. I'm doing Kriya Yoga with my Hatha Yoga, and washing out with salty water and doing my breathing and everything. Yes, but do you understand that conduct is actually the other part of those physical practices? So we have to understand the very, very central role that conduct plays, because when we work in Tantra, we want to work with what's easiest to work with. The body is easiest to work with. Conduct is easiest to work with. What's the hardest thing to work with? Mind, right? As it says in the Upanishads as well, you know? What's the fastest thing in the universe? The mind. Faster than the wind. There's this beautiful poetry about it. Faster than this, faster than that. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, you know? Superman stuff. So the mind is so fast, it's very difficult to work with. But we can work with this, we can work with this, we can work on being an embodied presence. And that's what makes tantric integration practices of conduct so really powerful. Yeah? Okay? All right. So it's in the fruit category, and it's the result as well as something we can integrate. So remember, it's the result of when we're enlightened, but it's also a practice we can integrate in each moment, the energy of it. So we're energy practicing when we do it as well, when we work with our conduct. And it's also the view. How is it the view? Because here we get into the difference between tantric conduct precepts versus morality and commandments. Okay, this is a big difference, huge difference. When I was 18, I took initiation into Chan Buddhism, and I took like 300 and something vows. It was wild. I had to sit in Vajrasana while they chanted out these vows. My legs fell completely asleep, and when I was supposed to get up and why the teacher after and present stuff, I couldn't move. I was like crawling with my hands and dragging my legs behind me like they were paralyzed. It was very embarrassing, and I thought, I'm doing this all very horribly because I can't stand up and walk over properly. I look like an invalid. And they all were laughing. They were all laughing at me. And afterwards, when we were all eating together in the meal, celebration meal, after, so, oh, it happens often. You know, people can't feel their legs. It's like 3 hours. You're not allowed to move, you know. And I did my stoic martial thing and not move, of course. So I couldn't have any feeling left. Now, it's interesting, that kind of a tradition that gives those kind of vows. When we look at the understanding of Tantra, the way Tantra sees the world, as far as spiritual practice goes, Tantra sees the world in everything pretty much in threes. This is the outer world of spiritual practice, which I would call religion. The way most Western people think about religion nowadays, we would call that outer practice in Tantra. So non-dual Tantra has outer practice, has religious practice, very much based on custom and culture, geography, the politics of the time, what's interesting, you know, it changes over time. The inner practices don't change because they're based on the inner part of a human being, the psyche, the esoteric anatomy, the subtle physiology, nadis, channels, chakra, energy conductive points, transducers, right? Bindus, condensations of essence and consciousness, all this kind of 5 element stuff. This doesn't change. Humans are like that forever, always will be. This is the inner. This is the secret level, and then we put a dot in the center for most secret. So the most secret level. Oh, and now we can't even talk about it, or else we have to take you outside and disappear you. So, just my spy ancestral karma coming out. So it's the outer, inner, and the secret. So on the outer level, religions, even non-dual tantra and other dualistic religions, all develop ways of controlling human behavior. And the key word here is controlling human behavior. In the outer level, it's about control. Okay? So these vows I was getting were very interesting. You know, when I was sat there for that Buddhist initiation a long time ago, they were saying them in Chinese, but I got the English rundown later. You know, when I got the English rundown later, it was like, you won't step on a crack on the sidewalk. You won't put your pants on with your left leg first. Always be the right leg. Super like minutia stuff. I'm just kidding, of course. But it was like that. It was crazy. It was really little things. You know, you'll never push the Q-tip too far in your ear. It was like every little thing that you should do in life was laid out for you like you were a total moron. You know, like a robot that had to be programmed software. And I was like, you're kidding me. That's what I thought I was, and I remember thinking, I'm so disappointed. Probably why I broke away from that tradition. In the end, I was so disappointed. Chan is great. I think it's a great tradition. But the vow part of it just lost me. The outer part was like, because I already grew up with 10 Commandments, you know. I already was training to be a Catholic priest. The last thing I wanted was another how to pick my nose rules list, you know. At least this one didn't come from a god, so that was good. So, you see, in the outer level, it's all about control, and most of it is about controlling the energy of a person through controlling the conduct. If you can convince somebody, it's good for them to exert some control or some pause over their instant desire gratification mechanism, right? Over stimulus response mechanism. If you can convince somebody, it's good for them to exercise some control over the mechanism. That's good. That's stage 2 in Tantra out of 12. We have to have that. have to have that or we're out of control. We lose all our energy and destroy ourselves and everybody else in the process. But hear what I'm saying. You're teaching someone in Tantra how to know the mechanism. Desire arises, I sense. Yeah? Appetite arises, I sense that. That's the process we're looking for. Then pause. Until we have very clear discrimination at a higher level. Pause. I'm not sure I should follow this or not. That's good. That's good. But going unconscious and following vows, I think, is counterproductive to spiritual cultivation. Going unconscious and following robotic vows, I think, is very counterproductive to spiritual cultivation. For me, as a young Catholic person, until I was 13 when I renounced it and told everybody I was a Buddhist, I found that the 10 Commandments were very unnatural. I found that my own energy of my nature was at odds with these rules put upon me. Rules put upon me by a God, which I thought was even stranger in the end. Now, they're good rules. You know, shouldn't kill people. It's a good idea, right? Shouldn't go sneak in somebody's neighbor's house and get it on with their partner without them knowing. It's probably a good idea too. So they're not like bad ideas, but I found this idea of someone else putting them on me to not work for me, and very rigid around them to be not so good, right? So, another example is Thich Nhat Hanh, right? A great Buddhist teacher, right? You ever hear of Thich Nhat Hanh? Very great teacher from Vietnam, right? Meditation teacher. He has Plum Village and all those monks and nuns and everything, right? Nice guy. So, he looked at the situation of Hinayana, Theravada Buddhism, and saw a serious problem with it. Like if you ever come here from overseas to Kalashikara and we go in town, you'll see the same problem. Thailand, Thailand considers itself to be the staunch advocate and holder of the original Buddhism. They look down their nose at everybody, other Buddhist people in the world except Sri Lankans. So, and of course it has nothing to do with them being conquered by Burma and Cambodia over 1,000 years. So, you know, but anyway, we're number one, exist here in the Buddhist terminology. So, what happens is, when you look at these vows, when you're in town here and see these monks in town here, you know, they're surfing porn and they're playing on their video games and they're using their mobile phones and they got bank accounts, and they got motorcycles, smoking cigarettes like they're going out of style, eating meat, all this kind of stuff. And you go, isn't this against the vows? What are they doing? They're breaking all their vows. And guess what? Only one I mentioned is against the vow. Only eating the meat is against the vows. And even that they don't really take very seriously in Thailand. Well, someone gave it to us at alms, so I have to take it. You know. By the way, can you give me that next week? That was really good. You know. So they don't take these vows so serious. Why? Well, they do take the vow, they do take the vow serious that they have, but they don't have a vow against buying a motorcycle. They don't have a vow against surfing the internet. They don't have a vow against porn. I can't have sex. I can watch it like the Dickens, but I can't have it. Oh, look at that. Holy smokes. You see what I mean? And this is what I thought was really crazy about taking vows. You have to lay out every little thing. You know, you can't part your hair on the left. You have to part it on the right. It's about every little thing you do in life. And by their tradition, because I've engaged them in conversation about this, I find this fascinating. And by the Hinayana Buddhist, Theravada Buddhist tradition, what they're doing is not wrong. In the outer level. I don't have a vow against that. Free area to go for it. Do you know about this? So I find this fascinating myself, having been an ex-Buddhist when I first started, you know, recovering Buddhist, and then now watching it from the outside. It's very funny. So Thich Nhat Hanh, back to him, he's great. He's an innovator. So he started looking at this and say, well, this is not 2,500 years ago, or these vows were started formulating, what, about 200 years after Buddha died. But he looked at this and he's like, okay, we need more vows. We seriously need more vows. The world's exploded. You know, there's all kinds of problems that we didn't have back then. And he wrote up all these new vows about how long you can spend on the internet per day, what you can't surf for, what you can. So he made a whole, like another 200-something vows that they have to take now. That makes sense. I was disappointed personally because I like him and I thought he's a real innovator. He had a chance to do something amazing. He could have moved that whole system out of the outer into the inner. He could have created precepts, you know, and done away with all these vows. Just simply said, if what you're engaging in is damaging to others in any way, or diminishes the essential dignity of yourself and the other in any way, don't do it. Well, porn is gone, Condescension and thought, is gone. Like immediately, whole categories are just wiped out with that one. You don't need to be individual. But that means you have to have people who can think. And that's always been the hard part with humanity, finding those people who can think. Hence the control part, why we have laws and jails and cops, right? So the outer level of religion is law, jails, and cops, basically. So he didn't create principles. I was bummed out. He had a big opportunity to really up his system and put it on a new playing field. But anyway, he did make it better. So this is the difference. I'm trying to give you the difference now between precepts, what we're going to teach about today, precepts versus rules, commandments, or vows, right? Tantra has vows. We have a lot of vows, actually, that I've taken in my Bun system and in the Shaiva Tantra. Taken vows in both systems to very high levels. But they're not the kind that sound like you don't pick your nose at a red light. It's not that vows. They're not outer level vows. They start at inner and they're secret as well. As most secret levels, no vow, of course. It's just being in the state.